It's brief here. We're a couple weeks into our preseason, as we talked about at Media Day last week. We have a really, we have a really exciting opportunity coming up here with playing Dayton in an exhibition game. As some of you may know, Anthony and his wife, Chris, they have a really powerful story, a really personal, powerful story around mental health that they have, I think, just here recently begun to really take some time to share. And I give them a ton of credit for the courage it's taken to share that personal story. Anthony called back in the summer and asked if we'd be willing to play an exhibition game to start the season to really raise money around mental health and mental health as it relates to teenagers and college-age kids. And he said this will give myself, our family, and my wife, Chris, an opportunity to share our personal story. And we really jumped in with 2 feet because I think it's a great opportunity to raise money, to raise awareness, to also hopefully give Anthony and his family some healing in the midst of this. So I'll let him or you kind of learn more about their personal story. Dayton's obviously a good team. There's history here, recent history, as recent as 2014 in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They're in Aaron's last game, I believe, in Buffalo. And then the last time I believe we played there was in 1988. So it's been a minute since we've traveled and played there. The game will be very much an exhibition game. We'll play different rotations, different lineups. In football vernacular, it'll be it'll have a little bit of a spring game feel in terms of trying different things, giving different looks, playing different rotations as we continue to tinker and prepare for our first game against Oakland. So just a couple words on that. We're really excited about this group. They've been working extremely hard. I cannot wait to get them on the court here on Sunday, but in particular to start the season against Oakland. So it's a really exciting time for us right now as we get moving forward. All right, I'll take some questions.
We'll start far left with Adam Jarrett.
Hey, Chris. When you spoke with us at Big Ten Media Day last week, you said you had a couple guys still kind of banged up a little bit. Just what's the health of the team heading into this weekend? Yeah,
no real updates on Tayson still in going through his recovery from his procedure, Adam, and that's still going to take a few weeks. There's no real update on his timeline. Austin Parks has returned to practice. He's beginning to do some full court work today. And then we've had some other bumps and bruises, but nothing of note, just normal preseason. We're going long. We're hitting pretty much every day right now. And, that can beat up a body a little bit. So we'll taper back as we get closer to real games.
And what will be the benefit of playing a game at this part of the preseason that isn't behind closed doors, that is going to be, warts and all, is going to be out there for everyone to see? Yeah, no, I think in most cases, as you know, the idea behind this is closed scrimmage, although those super secret scrimmages are really not super secret anymore, as we all know. Somehow we've got some moles in our program because you guys always figure out what the scores are in those particular games, which is really fine. I couldn't care less. We do have a super secret scrimmage the following week that many of you guys already know the opponent. And that will be I think we have really 2 early tests for our team. And again, you approach them very differently than you would a regular game. That's the reality. But I think both of these teams, I believe Dayton's picked to win the A-10. They're coming off a 20-win season. And the team we're scrimmaging is also picked to have a very good season.
We'll go third row front, Patrick Murphy.
Chris, you talked about the benefits of this game. You've done these scrimmages before. Going on the road,
a
place like Dayton, you said sell out. How much does that impact, especially some of the young guys getting a chance to experience that, even though it will be still an exhibition?
Yeah, I think it's great. I really think it's great because that'll be an environment that will mimic really what a Big Ten road environment will look like. And it's early, right? It's October. You're throwing your group into that. I think the reality is having some guys that have been through some high level environments, road environments. Having those guys returning that are going to play important roles for us really helps. But there's no question that's going to be a different feel than what you normally experience in these closed doors, almost like a classroom setting is what a lot of these, what these scrimmages are. And going on the road and doing it is, I think, we look at it as a great opportunity. And I think it's, again, we're looking at it as another practice, another opportunity to get better, but obviously it's against someone else, which I know our guys will welcome.
Stay in the bill right next to him, Brendan Gould.
Hey, the idea of having this opportunity to play to raise awareness for mental health is a cool chance for you to talk about what that means for your program, even though a lot of this is Dayton focused. Obviously, Coach Day has a big mental health initiative. What priority in your program is mental health, the resources you have available to your players, and how do they take advantage of those?
Well, as many of you know, the university and the athletic department really, I think, was ahead of the curve in making this a priority years ago. I think Gene led the way with that. In terms of the staffing and the therapists and counselors that are available, and beginning the conversation years ago, I think that was, again, I think we were ahead of the curve, and certainly we have the resources to make that a priority. I think as far as a head coach's responsibility and our staff's responsibility, I think it's important to have open dialogue about what it looks like, what mental health looks like, and what taking care of yourself looks like, to normalize this whole process of young people going through struggles that they go through. And when I had a chance to talk to Anthony, I think he brought some great insight, and as it's such a personal story to him, talking about his daughter and what she went through and what she went through during the years of the pandemic, and some of all the struggles that young people went through there. So I think it's I think each program and each staff here that I'm in contact, I know I've talked to Ryan about it, take it very seriously. I think it's true for young people, it's true for all of us sitting in this room, that it is really important to prioritize that. And on another note, I do think that one of the things I've learned as I've advanced in years here a little bit is I often feel like I'm in the best place with my self-care when I'm thinking about others and when my life is centered around helping others. And I think it's always a good lesson for all of us.
It's kind of hard to transition back to a basketball question after that, but I'm curious, when you have a new team, every year it has a little different feel to it. Can you give us a sense of what the maturity of this team feels like early in the year, their ability to grasp what you guys want to do?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really good. I feel really good about it. Again, having some guys returning that played important roles, like Bruce, Roddy, Felix, Zed. Having some older guys, been really pleased with our 3 transfers that we added. So I think it's been really good. Obviously time will tell, but we've had some really good leadership. I think we have those sophomores that have taken another step as players and as people. And in Bruce's case, I think he's really grown as a leader.
One more up, Rob All.
Chris, on the mental health part, you have to be amazed and delighted with how far this pendulum has swung from when you were a player, maybe
Yeah.
even at Gardner.
Yes.
I mean, would you have benefited from this back in the day as a player? Or, I mean, the stigma was there then.
Yeah.
It's not now. I mean, how far has this thing come?
Yeah, I can't imagine going into my coach and asking him if I could see a therapist. That's how far we've come. I just couldn't imagine doing it, and or my trainer. I just it just wasn't common, and in some ways, and I never got this impression from him. But he many of you know, I was super close to him. He's since passed, but it was not normalized in any way. So I think that it's come a really long way. And again, I give our athletic department a lot of credit for it. But, the reason this was so, I think we jumped at it, and we've talked about, I know for 7 years now here, I've gotten grief from Dayton fans about never playing them, and trust me, it's been pretty consistent. We have talked about playing in the past, and I'd be open to doing a home and home with them at some point for sure, as we almost did it a couple years ago. But this is so unique because it's so personal to Anthony and his family, and I think that's why I got tremendous respect for him. That's why we jumped at the opportunity.
Basketball question.
Sure.
Last year we were watching Roddy. He's just kind of going along. Boom. Late in the season, tournament, he just comes on. How important is something like that for a kid to really just come into this year like a 180 almost?
Yeah, I think finishing like we did was important for everyone, but certainly for him with the way he played to get some confidence against good teams and to finish 5-2 down the stretch. He didn't really kind of hit his stride until the last few games of the Big Ten tournament. We saw glimpses of it in practice. Now, for him, I think he's got to take the next step as a player, and that is really, how consistent is he going to be? And that's what's sitting in front of him, the challenge. How consistent are you going to be? For us to be good in what we believe we can be this year, Roddy has to take a real consistent step forward.
Chris, you mentioned the transfers. One asked about Dale, especially now with Taysom now, probably an important ball handler for you guys at the moment. Probably will be this season anyway. But
Yeah.
Are you expecting him to be the kind of player he was at Baylor, or are you expecting even more scoring or want that from him this season?
Oh, I anticipate him playing a bigger role than what he did at Baylor. Dale Bonner's he's been really good for us. He gives us a speed that we haven't had. He's the fastest player we've coached here from end to end for sure. He just has tremendous quickness and speed with the ball. And he's a little bit slight in build, but he's been able to really shoot the ball. We're going to need him to play a bigger role. He's playing behind a couple NBA guys there at Baylor. We're going to need him to play a bigger role, and I think he's ready for it.
Well, in the back row, Jeremy Berman.
Hey, Chris, how do you fix the Ohio State run game?
I was hoping you'd ask that.
Beyond that, last year about this time we talked, and you had kind of hinted that you saw something really special with Bryce last summer. How do Scotty and Devin, similarly ranked kids coming out of high school, high expectations?
Yeah.
How have you seen them adapt to this level, and what are you expecting from those guys?
Yeah, I think Bryce had this natural ability to kind of get a bucket even when he was being challenged or closely guarded. He was a tremendous isolation player. Those guys have different games. They have different strengths that they bring to the game right now. Scotty right now is probably of our freshmen, not probably, he is of our freshman ability to come in and impact on both ends. But I think they all will have moments this year. I think the reality is if our team grows like we expect it to, we may not need to rely on our freshman class as much as we did last year in terms of just throwing minutes their way, which I think is healthy for them and for our team. I think Devin's shown real improvement here in the last couple weeks in his conditioning and his fitness. But again, I think that's a high bar just in terms of Bryce's proficiency scoring to place on anybody. But they have different strengths that they bring, and certainly both of those guys will impact our team.
You and Ryan Day, it seems like there's been a little bit more simpatico, the podcast stuff that he was on, over the summer. You guys, obviously, as a program, need the football program for recruiting visits. And how vital has this relationship been between the two programs in the last few years?
Well, since I've been here, really. I mean, Urban was tremendous as soon as I got here. We've since stayed in contact and stayed in regular communication. I never forget him coming over. I think he was working in the office, came over during the Michigan State game when we beat him there. But those guys have, both of those guys have been great. They've been, our wives, we have dinner together. We built a friendship. I think there's a commonality in terms of, being at this place. And
I think it's grown into a really, beyond just a working friendship. It's grown into a friendship. So, I'm a big fan of him, big fan of his leadership, and can't wait for this weekend.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, this is the third season in a row where Dayton has sold out their regular season schedule. They love basketball down there at Dayton. What kind of elements of their culture would you like to have emulate up here at Ohio State?
Well, I love their arena. Excuse me. Love their arena. Love the size of it. And I love ours as well. I just think, they have a pretty compact place. Had the chance to see it for a minute over the summer. And we know for years, right, for decades, not years, for decades, that place has been really passionate. I think they have, one of the great basketball fan bases, and most people who follow college basketball know that. They have one of the great basketball fan bases in the country, and I'm really excited for our group to play in front of it because it is a tremendous following. So, kudos to them for doing that. It's been that way for years now. They're pretty consistent in that, as they always have been. They love their basketball, and that's part of the reason why the first 4 games have been there in the NCAA tournament.
Had an exhibition again last year against Chaminade, objectively a lower caliber team than Dayton. How important is it after a disappointing record last year to open your season against higher caliber teams like Dayton and the double secret scrimmage team?
Well, as I mentioned, it's an opportunity for us to get a chance to see how we perform against a really good team, a team that's expected to win their league and be an NCAA tournament team. I think that gives you great feedback. Again, it's not. It'll be coached differently than a regular season game. That's the reality of it. We'll look at different rotations, different lineups. We're not going to play guys as much as we would when we open against Oakland, but it'll give us a really good test and information to take back.
Hey, Chris. Simple question, maybe not a simple answer. What are you hoping to get out of this game? You mentioned different rotations and things, but on individual kind of guys and play in basketball, what are you hoping to get out of this?
To see how our guys respond in that element against another good team, against the physicality that they're going to bring. They have a really good frontline player. It'd be great for us to see how our guys operate against a really good frontline player as well as a talented guard. They got a couple preseason all-league guys. So anytime you're going into this, you only look at it as a coach and as a really positive thing because you get all of this immediate feedback that you can take back. And in some cases, if you're struggling or if a guy's struggling, you might leave him in there a little bit longer just for him to experience and work through that a little bit. These are the kind of environments where you do that.
Real quick on the mental health. I'm sure you've talked with the guys and they know the story and they know what you guys are doing and why. How important is that at the beginning of the season for them to have those conversations with each other and begin that bonding and building and getting to know each other on a different level?
Well, I think that takes time, as you know, Whitney. That takes time for teams and for guys. We did a cool thing here a few weeks ago where we spent some time away from campus, away from their phones, which was really well received, as you might imagine. And it was a really good thing. But I think those kind of conversations, how personal those can be around mental health and maybe what a kid's struggling with, they take some time to develop. And I think we're getting there for sure.
Yeah, Coach. Felix Akpara, just curious about him now 3 weeks in or so. Are you getting the sense that he's making that step to where he could be a 20-minute, 25-minute a game type player? Because when he played those kind of minutes in the tournament last year, it felt like he was changing games and impacting games.
Yes.
He's able to stay on the court.
Yes.
What do you like about him, I guess, if he's able to do that?
A lot. Yeah, I like a lot about him. Just what you said. He impacts the game in a lot of ways. And I think for us, he's going to need to be able to play those kind of minutes consistently. He is, he's still, his offensive game is still evolving. And he's got to make sure he understands kind of who he is and what his strengths are. But his offensive game is growing and evolving. But when you're 6'11" and you have, almost a 7'2.5" wingspan, and you're a relatively quick jumper, and you're a good athlete, and beyond that, he's got a real intelligence he brings to ball screen coverages, to ball screen defense, to reading actions, to understanding how to play certain actions, whether it's a wide pin down or a stagger or a STS or any type of action. He's got a real feel for those things that I think is maybe a little bit uncommon for a young guy, and I think that's helped him on that end.
Same row next door, Steve.
Just following up on Devin and Scotty, Bryce and Malachi kind of got thrown into the fire. It worked because, they're one of them NBA players. So
Yep.
Is there a benefit to having guys in front of Scotty and Devin where they don't necessarily have to get thrown out there from day one and they're asked to do more?
For sure. In both cases, benefit for our team and benefit for them. Because if you remember back to Malachi struggled up until January. He played like a typical freshman up until January. And he benefited when we beat Duke here when they were number 1 in the country. Everybody was focused on other guys, E.J. Liddell, Kyle Young, Zed Key, and he was able to benefit and slowly come along and then really hit his stride. I think if you're going to have a good team, you have to be relying on your older returning guys at this level and then hope that your freshmen gradually come along. And that was the case in Malachi. Bryce had some maybe bigger, earlier moments in terms of scoring. But I think in a perfect world, you have some guys that can kind of help bring them along, and at some point they hit their stride. And as we all know, Malachi, we turned things over to him late in games. The Indiana game here, when we beat him, we kind of turned things over to him, and that's when you started to see him really come into his own.
They don't have to do that, but if they had to, could they?
Well, that remains to be seen. Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. And I think, again, that's a lot to put on them. I want them just to play to their strengths right now. I think that remains to be seen.
When you're looking at how this lineup could be constructed, there's a lot of different options you guys have, especially, in the front court. Just, I guess, how much experimenting, obviously there's going to be plenty of it against Dayton, but how much do you keep the starters out there and guys that are, you see as big-time contributors for this season and kind of move them around as opposed to playing younger guys?
Yeah, I think there'll be more mixing up than what there will be in the Oakland game in the start of the season. I think there'll be more changing of lineups. Who we start in this particular game may not be who we start in 2 weeks. Very well could change. That's not decided yet. We still have a number of practices. We have two exhibitions, so there'll be a lot of tweaking and moving around.
A few minutes ago, I heard you talking about hitting. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Or is that kind of because you're in the Woody? You're talking.
Yeah, partly. Partly play. I always consider myself a football guy, so I was going to answer the running question there.
I don't know if you're putting on pads or you see video over the years of guys whacking dudes.
Clay, I was an assistant wide receiver coach to start my coaching career, by the way.
Well, let's hear more.
No, we should not hear more about that. We should definitely not hear more about that. It was a short stint.
Okay, so hitting entails what?
So when I say hitting, yeah, it's a good question. It's a fair question. I think right now, when we're saying hitting, it's a lot of scrimmaging. It's body on body contact. It's really a physical practice. So you have bumps and bruises, and we've got guys that are banged up in that area. That was, I think I mentioned that when I was asking about the injuries. So we have guys that are banged up because they've got bumps and bruises because of the constant hitting that's going on right now. Yesterday we went for about 240. That's longer than what we're going to go in season, and a large part of that was hitting.
But that's good prep, right?
Sure.
I mean,
I think that's needed. Coaches vary on that. Some coaches might worry about injuries or just say, hey, it's October. Why are we hitting this much? It's a really wide variety of people in terms of philosophies on what they want to do this time of year in terms of length and the number of minutes they're hitting. All that stuff gets evaluated and talked about in the preseason, but we're doing a fair amount right now.
No whistle